to be on this stage, because when I came to Bucharest 2 years ago, I had not any experience at all of blogging. I was a blogging virgin. And for the last 2 years I have been faking it. And I hope one day to make it. But it's been a very interesting journey that I have experienced over the last 2 years. And I just wanted to share with you some of the reasons why I think the social media, blogging, Facebook and Twitter and the other channels that are always popping up now, is a really important, in fact really a mandatory tool for any diplomat. I am surprised to find that when I came here 2 years ago, I think I was the only ambassador in Bucharest who had a blog. And 2 years later, I'm still the only ambassador in Bucharest who has a blog. So I don't quite know why my colleagues in the diplomatic corps have not decided to follow my example, but I want to explain perhaps 2 or 3 reasons why blogging has been important to me in the last couple of years. And I want to highlight 3 audiences perhaps for the blog that I write, the 3 audiences that are most important to me. The first is the British community. You might not believe this, but most British people in Romania, like most British people in any country around the world, frankly think that embassies and ambassadors are a waste of their tax money. That is, if they're paying taxes. Their general impression is that we spend our time drinking gin and eating Ferrero Rocher, and not really doing anything useful. And the blog is a really important method of having a conversation or keeping information up with the British community here in Romania. Explaining to them what it is that I do from day to day, what are the issues that are important to me, what it is that the embassy is focusing on, what are the activities that we are highlighting in terms of what Britain is doing in Romania at the moment. So, for example, this week I've been blogging about Eurocopter. I was up at Eurocopter on Friday, where we've placed a really big order for the upgrade of 20 Puma helicopters with the RAF. And we had great fun on Friday, along with the Prime Minister and others, flying the first of those helicopters that's been renovated. It's a really important contract between Romania and the UK, and the blog is an opportunity to tell the British community about that. I've also been blogging this week about the Romanian Parliament and how it's necessary for the Romanian Parliament to change its rules to address MPs who have final sentences in corruption cases, or MPs who are incompatible. And looking at how those rules can be reformed, which again is an important issue for us in the embassy, and it's important to tell the British community about what we're doing. And it's also really important to use Facebook as a way of staying in touch with the British community. So we have found it almost impossible to get British citizens to register with the British embassy. In these days, I think people have a natural disinclination to fill in a form, to register with a government organisation. But it's very important for us, if there is any kind of emergency situation in Romania, if there's an earthquake, God forbid, that we're able to put out information quickly to British nationals and tell them what they should be doing, what assistance we can provide. And the best way for us to do that now is through Facebook and Twitter, which doesn't require people to register, but means that we can be in touch with them. So that first audience is the British community, and I think that certainly that's a really important readership for the blog that I write. But the second is the Romanian leaders and politicians and businessmen that are my interlocutors on a day-to-day basis. Because what I find is that the messages that I want to put to them, sometimes privately, can be underlined also in what I say publicly on the blog. And so if I take an example of the crisis that we went through this summer, the blog was a very powerful instrument in setting out right at the beginning of the crisis what my position was as we went through the events of July and August, which was a very simple one about the need to respect the Constitution and to implement the decisions of the Constitutional Court. That's a message that I put out to all of the key actors, both in the conversations that I had with them, but also to set that out on the blog, where it's clear in a public space as well, because I think the private messages that we make are often reinforced by stating those messages publicly, and a blog is a very effective way of doing that. It's also important, I find, if I'm visiting British companies here or visiting Romanian institutions, to be able to talk about that on the blog, because again it reinforces the impact of the visit that I make and the messages that I make. And so I think there's this important relationship between speaking out publicly and speaking privately, which the blog allows us to do. But then, of course, the third audience is the Romanian people, the Romanian social media public themselves. And you have an extraordinary situation in Romania where I think 5 million people are on Facebook. So, that's 1 in 4 of the population. I think there are a few countries I know of where there is such a high intensity of the use of Facebook. So why wouldn't we, as diplomats, engage with such a big and informed and active public as the one that we can reach on Facebook? And indeed, just looking outside of Romania, looking at what happened last year, in 2011, in the Middle East, whether it was in Iran, or in Egypt, or in Lebanon, many parts of the Arab world, frankly, if we had not been following what was happening on Facebook, or in Twitter, or in the social sphere, we as diplomats would not have been doing our job properly. In fact, my colleague, who's the ambassador in Lebanon at the moment, made the point recently. He said, perhaps our reactions would have been better if we had noticed the hashtag, #Tahrir, a little bit earlier than we did. So it's not just that we're reaching out into the social media, it's also, of course, that the social media, what's happening in the blogosphere, on Facebook and so on, is influencing now international events. It's important to international diplomacy. And we have to know what's going on, but we also have to engage with what is going on. So for us, our Facebook account is probably our most powerful public diplomacy tool here in Romania. And we're complementing that also with the blog, with what we do on our webpage, with our Twitter account, which is growing slowly, but I'd be interested to have a conversation with people here about Twitter and how that's developing in Romania and how we can make more use of it. I think, for me, the challenge moving ahead is to be able to demonstrate in Romania and in other countries that Facebook is more than just a page. One of the fundamentals for any democratic society, for any society where the rule of law is strong, is to have a thriving civil society. And the fact is that in my country, in the United States, in most countries in Europe, civil society has been shrinking. The number of clubs that people are a member of has been dropping. Participation in schools' parent-teacher associations has been falling. The donations that people give to charities have been declining steadily over the last 40 years. And the question is whether we can use social media to regenerate civil society and get people to be more active, interactive, committed, engaged through social media in a way that they once were in clubs and societies around Europe and in North America. We, along with the American Embassy and some other embassies here, have been trying to make some first steps in that direction with an initiative called Restart Romania, which has been supporting a number of new sites and new applications which are intended to tackle issues of corruption or issues of rule of law here in Romania. So, for example, we're supporting a website which is called, I think, Pădure Pierdute, which is about illegal logging in Romania. And what it does is it uses both Google Maps and also an application that you can download onto your phone to allow you, if you're in the countryside in Romania, to report any logging activities that you see. And that allows citizen action to feed into civil society action, so that that information, that data, can then be taken by this NGO and can be used, compared with Roma Silva, to see what the actual activity is that's going on and to tackle instances of illegal logging. And there have been similar initiatives dealing with illegal parking or dealing with corruption in the health centre, which we hope to hook up with Ryan Arafat's work on integrity in the Romanian health sector. So I think there are various means, but still, to my mind, quite an early stage, of turning the social media into social action in a way which makes our societies throughout Europe better places to live. So to conclude, I think I've found the last 2 years a fascinating journey. I said I would do it I was encouraged by actually a veteran here of this conference, Andreea Hangamu, who works in our press section, to start a blog when I came here 2 years ago. I said I would do it for 6 months to see if it worked. 2 years later, I'm still blogging. I'm convinced, more and more convinced, that it's a tool of diplomacy, that you can't be an effective diplomat in the 21st century unless you are a twiplomat and a diploblogger. And I hope ultimately to convince some of my other colleagues in the diplomatic community here in Romania to join me and to get online. Thank you very much indeed.